Top story this afternoon. President Moon Jae-in has addressed the National Assembly for the second time since taking office. Our chief Blue House correspondent, Moon Connyoung, is live for us on the phone with the details. So, Connyoung, how would you describe President Moon's second speech in Parliament, but his very first State of the Nation on the annual budget approval?
Well, Mark, it was the president's most earnest appeal for budget approval before the majority-led parliament. Now, in his second State of the Nation to the National Assembly, President Moon Jae-in optimistically outlined a bold agenda highlighted by social welfare, justice, economy, and security. Now, if his first parliamentary address focused mainly on the need for a swift approval of extra budget, today's half-an-hour-long speech was more of a general overview of the policies related to all state affairs, explaining why it is that the government is requesting for the roughly $380 billion budget for 2018. That's a spike of a little over 7% from this year. Using PowerPoint presentation, the president thoroughly reviewed the administration's policies in security, economy, people's livelihoods, social justice, and others.
Okay, then, Connyoung, can you give us a brief wrap-up of each of those, then, if you can?
Sure. The entire speech can be broken down to three huge chunks: security, economy, and amendment of the Constitution, which he championed during his presidential campaign earlier this year. Now, on security, President Moon reaffirmed his stance that South Korea will neither develop nor seek to possess nuclear weapons, and again called on North Korea to give up its nuclear ambitions. Now, take note that the president's vow today comes amid the opposition party's call to redeploy U.S. tactical nuclear weapons to South Korea. Mr. Moon established that the government's #1 goal in security was to establish peace on the Korean Peninsula, but that maximum retaliation would be guaranteed in case of any military provocation by North Korea. Emphasized again in this part of the speech was close coordination with the global community, super strong South Korea-U.S. alliance, and that Seoul is doing all that it can to not to be on the back seat in dealing with North Korea. Now, regarding the economy, President Moon again advocated his policy for people-centered economy, stressing that his government is doing all that it can to bring back Asia's fourth largest economy on the right track. Noting that policies aimed at creating this economy that's people-centered and innovation-oriented would improve social welfare and people's livelihoods, the president said the proposed government budget for 2018 could be the very first step in making that change. President Moon outlined them as job creation, greater household income, and better public safety and security. Now, last but not least, and this is very important to note, Mr. Moon struck a note of determination for constitutional amendment for the very first time before Parliament, rushing lawmakers to begin discussions, reminding them that in order for the amendment to be made, it needs to be put to a national vote in the upcoming local elections next June. The constitutional revision under consideration includes giving more power to local governments to ensure autonomy and political reforms that ensures more rights for the average Koreans. Mark?
Well, thank you very much, Connyoung, for your comprehensive report, and we are looking forward to more analysis in our later newscast. That was our Moon Connyoung reporting from South Korea's presidential Blue House on President Moon's speech. Now, we're going